Okay, so today we're going to mount some Burton bindings onto a Burton snowboard. Let's start with the unpacking. What we've got here today, some brand new Burton Step-Ons. Pretty cool. And if we start with the unboxing, here's what we get in the box. Of course, you've got your bindings, Burton Step-Ons. You've got your bolts and washers, and base plates. Now, it's important to note that it comes with two different types of base plates, and it depends if you're using the old star pattern that Burton's famous for, or their new slider. So you're going to find that these base plates are different. So you'll see here, these have options for the bolts to go in many different configurations, right? Now this particular base plate is for the original star bolt pattern. We're going to set those aside for now. This pattern here is used in the newer slider Burton boards. And when I say slider, talking about this design here. So as you can see, this slider configures with these base plates. And the reason it's different is because you'll have a little almost rectangular shape in the base plate that fits into the provided slider inserts that go into the board. Okay, so in the box, we've got bindings, we've got base plates, we've got bolts, washers, and slider inserts that go into the board. Of course, you also get your, what do they call this thing, a leash? Your leash, and Step-On user guide. Okay, so now that we've seen what's in the box, I'm going to just set things aside a little bit. I'm going to put the base plates that I don't need off to the side. I'm going to bring in the board. Alright, so as we talked about earlier, what we want to do is position these bindings on the board so that our base plates are lined up with the slider. Before we do anything, we're going to collect our inserts and take these little inserts. We're going to pop this black rubber piece out, and we're going to slide two inserts down into each slider. Okay? This is what we're going to screw the bolts into in a moment. I'll do that on either slider. Here's my black rubber stopper. Two more inserts. We just slide down. Then I'll pop these back into place. And that will stop these inserts from coming out. Okay, so we've got the inserts in the slider. Now the next thing we're going to do is, there's a nice cushion on the bottom of this binding. But we want to get underneath it to get to the base plate. So you can peel this back, two little clips here. You can peel this back with your hand, and I've got the base plate already put in here, but technically this is going to look like this. You got to take one of your base plates, whichever one you're going to use. You end up putting it into this configuration down here. Now, here's the important part when you're setting bindings up. You're going to see, I don't know if you can see in there, I'm trying to do my best, but on the base of the binding there's a little arrow. Okay? And on each one of the base plates there are numbers, and these are angles. So what you want to do is, kind of by rider preference, is set the angle that you want your feet to be at. A lot of riders enjoy a bit of a duck stance. I'd say the most common stance would be 15 degrees up front and about 11 in the back, so that your your feet are kind of positioned in a bit of a duck. Not too much, just a bit. So that's how I'm going to set this one up. I'm going to set 15 degrees up front and about 11 degrees in the back. And so that means I'm just lining up that little arrow with 11 degrees. Once I've got that, now I've got my base plate in the binding, and I'm going to put it on top of the sliders. Okay? Sorry, those inserts that we put into the sliders. So now I'll bring this down a little closer, and now you can see that those inserts are in there. I've got myself lined up at about 11 degrees, those two arrows, kind of close, that's 9, creating a bit of a duck stance. And now I need to position this either like close or far. I don't have the rider here with me right now, so I'm just going to set this up in the middle. And essentially, the next step's pretty easy. All I have to do is take one of these bolts and washers, screw it in. Now what you'll notice is with Burton they give you different options for the bolts and the washers. And it's pretty clear that I use these four black ones for the slider option. If I have the old bolt pattern that's common in the industry with most older snowboards, I would use these 8 silver ones. So now I'm just going to screw them in.
These bolts down, the sliders become locked in their position, which is cool. So now it's just a matter of getting the right tightness, just snug enough, and those lock right in.
This last step becomes pretty easy. I take this cover and I just snap it in. Now I should note that also this no, this other one. These gas pedals, they come right off. And you can adjust these. So if you have a younger rider who's small or smaller foot, then essentially you just bring the gas pedal up tight so that it's not as long. And this keeps it inside of the board so you don't get toe drag. As your rider grows a little bit bigger and his boots get bigger, you can extend this out further so that you've got a little bit more angle on the toe. But for now, we're just going to bring these in nice and tight. As I was saying as a last step, just take this guy and basically just snap it back in. Check it out. We've got one of the bindings nicely installed, centered, ready to roll. Okay, so now that I've got that back binding put in place, I'm going to move up to the front here. One thing I want to call out is that you can have these bindings degreed either inwards or outwards, and I made the mistake of having this lined up so that the stance was pointing in, but we want to have that pointing out. So just do a double check and ensure that you've got the bindings in the position you want them. In this case, I've got them with that duck stance, so this is much better. Put the camera back down. We'll move on here. No, one more thing. Burton's also provided this line across the base plate, here through here, and this indicates the center. So if you want to center mount these bindings like I do here, I'm lining it up with this line right across, and that tells me that I've got even distance between the toe and the back of this binding. So that should be pretty good. So now, just like the back, simply a matter of taking these bolts, screwing them in, and as I screw them tighter, the inserts and the sliders become locked down and this binding doesn't move. So right now it moves, and I'm just going to try to position this. This is for a 12-year-old, so I'm just going to try to position this in the center of the board for a nice shoulder width stance. And last step, which is simple, take the little pad and just pop that into place. Check it out. You've got a nice set of Burton Step-Ons attached to this beautiful new Burton Process. That's a nice looking board. Burton Process Smalls 130. Ready to roll for your little ripper. Alright, hope you enjoyed that. Hope it was informative. I think that concludes our video on how to install Burton bindings on a slider plate. Thanks for watching.